Hey there, welcome to episode 166 of the Cafe Genius Impresarios audio program. I am your host, Dan Hugo. We are recording this at 12:35 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time here in the Greater Vegas area on Friday, May 1st, 2026. You can hear my voice is fully engaged with the allergy season that has returned once again, its annual visit to the Greater Vegas area. I'll see if I can get this worked out. But so it'll sound a little bit scratchy, perhaps. I can live with it if you can. Today's title and topic, Show Me Data. If you are not familiar with the Cafe Genius Impresarios audio program, let me tell you, Cafe Genius is a project, an initiative, an effort that we started back in 2022. We started with the Pitch Workout Room. This was an opportunity for people with ideas to get up in front of a room full of friendly people for some constructive criticism to get their ideas started. Ideas don't start themselves sitting on the couch. We needed a name for the entire effort. So Cafe with two F's and no accent, inspired by Cafe Centro in the San Francisco Bay Area. It was where startups start. It was located in the lovely South Park, literally across the street from the ballpark. Today it's the Oracle ballpark. It used to be the AT&T ballpark, the Pac-Bell ballpark. So Cafe Centro, I had been there many times. Unfortunately, it didn't survive very long after the pandemic, but it was indeed where people pursuing their startups would meet up and start their ideas going, work on them. I've often said we need some Cafe Centros here in Vegas. There are several spots where people do hang out, so do so. Genius for the Genius Lunches, which used to take place during the downtown project areas where people who were pursuing their entrepreneurial endeavors would take a moment and meet up for an ad hoc lunch with others doing the same. I used to attend as an external observer. I was working for Intel at the time, and I was traveling around engaging with makers and innovators of all ages and pursuits. So if I was in town, I was often invited just to join in the conversation. Cafe Genius, an homage to those things. The Cafe Genius Impresarios audio program, that's Impresarios with two S's, is a correct but uncommon spelling. Impresarios are the people that are doing those things, making it happen. We would invite them to come on to the show now and then, but Vegas is a tricky place to do such things and convince people to take that time. The good old days of the Genius Lunch, for example, are the good old days. We'd happily bring those back. In fact, we'll continue trying. If impresarios want to join in the conversation, great. Otherwise, we are here to talk about you in your absence. I am an impresario, so I can be a proxy. Hopefully, wherever you found this audio program, you're able to locate the episode description, which contains the show notes, including a brief summary, which I'll read to you, and the many links of this episode, 2 of the normal show links, and then several 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 links, and I prove once again that I am quite adept at counting. So a total of 10, by the way. See, I did it again. So let's get started so we can get into the weekend on this lovely, sunny, and a little bit warm. Not for the desert, but it's a little bit warm on this lovely Friday here in Vegas. The summary: a global hub of innovation surely must run on data analysis, and data-driven decisions, yes? So where is the data? The links include the Cafe Genius homepage, cafe, C-A-F-F-E, genius, Genius.org. It's getting to be where I need to actually fill in a bunch of stuff that's not on the website, but I've been getting the link out there week after week so that it is discoverable. The host, that's me, host profile page, linking everything. If I do have a guest, there will be guest links along the lines too, so you'll be able to find our guest and whatever they're talking about. But your host profile page, linking everything, is 5 years old. buymeacoffee.com/Dan Hugo. You will find links to all of my various productions, projects, some affiliate links. You don't need to spend any money. You don't have to actually buy me a coffee, although you're welcome to. And don't forget, the Buy Me an Update audio program is published on Monday mornings, available first. It used to be exclusively, but now it's hence the name. But now it's published first at buymeacoffee.com/danhugo/posts. And then it is published 2 hours later at the usual outlets: Apple, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube, the RSS feed, and so on. didn't make much sense to publish a podcast exclusively at buymeacoffee.com if they don't actually support RSS feeds and the normal podcast way. So no longer exclusive. Now, here's a collection of links that we'll be talking about today with regard to data, the infamous and daily talked about LVCVA, Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, Tourism Tracker. Now, this is at their research link. You're going to have to select Tourism Tracker to see that data. It's a tabulated data. It's published every month for the previous month, and the data just came out yesterday. The data was published completely yesterday for April. I'm sorry, for March. Pardon me. Today's May 1st. So I was like, oh, last month was April. No, it was completely published on April 30th for month ending for the period ending March 31st for the month. Okay, enough of that. I don't know if you can hear the emergency vehicle publication or production by a street. I've included a link to the Eater Las Vegas website. I'll get to that in a second. Startup NV is a statewide, whatever it is, had a Deal Room partnership announcement. So they were going to collaborate across the state with Deal Room to publish some data. So we'll get to that. There's a link to a top 50 Vegas startups article with some tabulated data, all of the startups in the top 50 published on Deal Room. We'll get to that. The Nevada GOED, that's the Governor's Office of Economic Development, Economic Snapshot, that is a page on the GOED website, well, wherever it actually is, but it's linked from the website to get some idea of what's going on with the economy across the state. So we'll visit that. The GOED Entrepreneurship Dashboard, hopefully it is what it sounds like, and would provide useful and helpful information for people considering entrepreneurial, maybe even innovative pursuits here in Nevada. The UNLV CBER reports, that's the Center for Business and Economic Research. I think I have that right. I should have written that down. There are, Business and Economic Research. They should be using a lot of data for what they're up to, right? So I've published a link to the Forecasts and Research page there, and also the Economic Dashboard. I guess dashboards are still popular. We'll get to, maybe that's a question. We'll get to that. So those are the many links for today. There are more links, and I could certainly have spent a lot of time trying to wander around and find data that is aligned with what we're trying to find out in our various travels. I will mention this is not an episode meant entirely to plug or promote the Cafe Genius Roundtable, but it is something that people sitting at the roundtable would want to look into as well. So we're kind of scraping across the first layer today in today's episode, but generally speaking, there should be a lot of data going on. We should be able to find it more easily. We should be able to work with it more easily. It should be basically published as open data, so it should always be available in a sort of a one-stop, interoperable location, virtual. But the city of Las Vegas, and Code for Vegas, I've mentioned that before. We are now the Innovate for Vegas Foundation. I'm the managing director, so a little plug for that. But a decade ago or so, when the city of Las Vegas was creating their open data platform, they worked with Code for Vegas and Code for America and built what still exists today, the open data platform that is hosted at present on an ArcGIS server somewhere. This is not uncommon. A lot of cities publish their open data on that platform. So we could be publishing more data on that platform, for example. So making all of these various pieces of data available in either one central location or in a cross-linked infrastructure so that we can track this stuff down would be nice. Don't consider today's conversation of a comprehensive deep dive into some data. We're touching on the topic and we're asking a big question. Where is it? So the LVCVA monthly data was published yesterday in entirety, the tourism data, the tourism tracker data. There's other data on the website, but the monthly tourism data is published for the previous month every month, and it compares the previous month with the same month from the previous year directly. You can probably do some deeper diving, but that's the one everybody waits for. So through all of 2025 and right up till today, or yesterday if you like, the tourism tracker data published by LVCVA is on everybody's mind. I covered this in a recent episode of this very program where YouTube and TikTok and other content creators, YouTubers and TikTokers and other content creators are busy each month pointing out that Las Vegas is dead, while resort property management makes a statement now and then in our local media, now and then, about the tourism economy improving. So depending on who you ask, Vegas is either dead and doomed and call it a day, wrap it up, move, head somewhere else, or everything's doing fine, we're growing, couldn't be better, let's build some more resorts and then tear some other ones down, blow them up even. There are months, maybe even a year's worth of these types of videos and presentations, and the statements come less frequently. But there will be more coming, to be sure, on both sides. So everything's fine or we're doomed. All of the monthly tourism data for March was published on 30 April. That's yesterday as we record this episode. It appeared that some of the airport and car traffic numbers were published earlier. I don't know if it was the day before that or maybe it was earlier in the week. And those appear to look pretty good as far as percentage growth over the previous year, same month, previous year. While the actual visitor data was published on the final day of April for March, and the percentages increased across the metrics, and they were greater than zero. That's always nice. This is not great news. The previous month it was 2.1% as the visitor number. Now it's not that big as an increase. Plus is good, but it was not awful news, as was the case through much of 2025. And I'm not laughing. I'm just acknowledging that it was not good news for most of the year. The fun economy, and that is a trademark term. The trademark is held by the UNLV Office of Economic Development since February of 2025 when it was finally granted, is important to Greater Vegas, obviously. Clark County and to Nevada in general, reporting on it is essential. And if the numbers look good, the numbers come out a little bit early, as they did in March when they showed visitor numbers up from the year before for February by more than 2%. Every little bit helps. So good news comes out a little bit early. Otherwise, look at the previous month's data on the final day of the current month or after. And by the way, the research tab on the LVCVA website does have has other data to examine. So you should have a look at that and see what sorts of things they collect. So why do they publish the previous month at the end of the current month? Consistency, I suppose. But I guess getting it out early, if there's some good news, hey, I guess if you have good news, you might as well share it far and wide. I'm not accusing them of anything. That's the way it seems. That may have been a fluke. It's hard to say. But they do publish all of the data consistently on the final day of the current month for the previous month. So have at it. Vegas is a kind of a food and drink kind of place. If there's one thing that Vegas is known for, it is the selection of fine and casual and everything in between dining by well-known chefs, some celebrity chefs, and some merely talented, not to mention all manner of normal purveyors offering up creativity and innovation and a nice variety of ethnic and fusion cuisines. We got a little bit of everything here. I like it. Not to mention various mobile food vendors found in trucks and under tents at various events and so on. So it's all good times. Mobile beverages are usually not of the adult flavor. That's a different thing. For myself, I like to flip through the Vegas section of Eater online frequently. I have it as one of my favorite newsfeed items, so I get updates on that as they become available. The links to various openings and closing, and so to find out which restaurants we should be looking for to open. So, for example, the Hat is coming in soon from LA. I think it's under construction right now in the southwest part of the area, I think. I have a boring story about the Hat from my college days, as there was a Hat location a few blocks away from Harvey Mudd College. So I'll tell that someday. Or maybe there's been some changes in the restaurant landscape. They'll talk about remodels, temporary closures, opening up a new location, etc. Or sadly, when things close. This is where we learn about spots that have been around for like 30 years. I think Ocha was a Thai restaurant that had been around for, I think it was 36 years, which couldn't stay open anymore, giving in to the slow economy, the slowing tourism numbers, slowing revenue. That's how it works. When owners and operators of these spots are given a chance to speak, and either will sometimes, and in fairness, occasionally some other local mainstream media outlets like one of the TV stations with their news websites will also speak to the owners of these places. When they're given a chance to speak, they express concerns over the reduced tourism and the economy in general, but also on occasion, they express some concerns about some of the decisions being made on high, which directly impacted their survival. Think parking fees in the arts district, or more dramatic impact for a shorter period of time, granted, when that big race comes around again every year in November, and all the construction and disruption that takes place before and after. Some material change, material losses in some cases. Of course, the fun economy trademark is even more fun with some potent potables. Thank you, Jeopardy, for that popular category. No shortage of such spots all over Greater Vegas. And now and then they get a shout on Eater and elsewhere. Certainly some of the local influencer crowd will publish a video now and then comparing the various beverages, various craft cocktails, and new and unusual venue offerings, grand openings, changes, and so on. Like any business opening or closing in Greater Vegas, some attention is usually in order, especially in case of the former opening. But it is just as important a part of the overall picture to know when a local cocktail bar or brew pub or restaurants, of course, cannot continue operating. These are harbingers, and there are many such signals floating around Greater Vegas telling us a lot of things if we can find them. Data. Signals are data. Data is signals, etc. Certainly when restaurants and bars close in a place like Las Vegas, that is sort of noteworthy. It may be a carrying capacity problem, but it's also something to just be aware of in general. Why did a restaurant that was going fine for, in quotes, I don't have their books in front of me, why was a restaurant that was around for 30, 35 years having to shut down because of a lack of revenue, unable to pay the bills, maybe rent increases, maybe it's difficult for their customers to hang around. That happened with Dig It Coffee in the Arts District. Parking. Can't pay for parking and enjoy a coffee, so they don't come. Dig It Coffee was kind of a bright spot in the Arts District, but they are opening in a new location, so that's good. Maybe we'll talk about that now when they do. So you want to pursue a startup. Now, to the part of that, this whole thing that bothers me the most. As you know, we here at Cafe Genius try to pay particular attention to the entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem and all of its elements, with an eye on learning more about it, the ecosystem, measuring them, I suppose, the elements, and making it better for all entrepreneurial and innovative endeavors and those pursuing them, with participation from those of us who want and need a solid and functional ecosystem in which to operate and pursue our hopes and dreams. Hence the Genius Roundtable, Cohort 2, one of these days. That's a plug, so hope you don't mind that. Now, where is the data? I posted that link to the collaboration and partnership announcement from Startup NV from 2024 concerning Deal Room and then other agencies around the state. Data from which was pulled, Deal Room, was pulled for inclusion in the statewide ecosystem study and report sponsored by EDON from several years ago. We did an episode with Mo Collins, who basically drove that study and then published the report. I've linked to it many times. We've talked about it. I don't know if anybody actually read it, and it's now a couple years old, so who knows? But so is all the data that we're going to find today. Old. But it was published. That report was published making use in some cases, some references to deal room data from before 2024. And at the time, it was questionably current. So for what it's worth, these are the sorts of things that we would want to pursue and update as part of the Genius Roundtable cohort to understand which data are we looking at and where did it come from and how old is it. This wouldn't be such a deep dive so much as just saying, where did this come from? Tell us. This data was pulled from before the partnership in that report, like I said. So this partnership announcement. And at the time, the data did seem optimistic. I think at the time there was a claim that there were 1,500 active startups. Yet when you'd actually dive into a particular startup, it was questionable as to whether it still existed. Keep that data fresh. So however, if we look at the Deal Room site for Vegas, there's a link in the announcement for it's nevada.dealroom.co. So if you visit that link, it's not there anymore. 2 years later, no longer exists. So after this announcement, visiting the link to top 50 list, for example, that article is still there. The top 50 Vegas startups. We can see that list was updated in 2024. So probably around when that announcement came and not after. If you actually, and by the way, I found that link through Google. So if you look for Deal Room Vegas startups, you'll find that article. If you actually look over that list if it's not an article so much, it's a post on their site with a tabulated list of startups. Switch is listed as number one. Switch is not a startup. What is a startup? By all appearances, Deal Room is even less useful a resource now than it was 3 years ago and maybe before. And this is probably a good thing. I don't think handing over your research to some platform that may or may not have an agenda that aligns with yours, better understanding your ecosystem and the communities within and the various endeavors people are engaged in and how successful one might be. These should be on your list, your shopping list. But however, with Startup NV and its tributes focusing on verticals for the sake of investment and returns. So in other words, Startup NV is serving their investors, the investor community, not necessarily the startup community. That I heard directly from, what's his name? Jeff Sailing. That was a long time ago, but that's essentially the mission, is to service investors and their investments in startups. So they only look at high value possible potential startups in tech and bio and so on, whatever their focus is today. I don't really spend much time thinking about it, thinking more broadly, if I have to be honest. But it has tributes, the Fund NV and Angel NV and Accelerate LV or something like this. There's a variety of vehicles that they are operating. I don't know how effective they are at elevating the ecosystem or improving it or addressing and servicing some of the startup communities and so on. They do limit their focus in some cases. I don't know if they broaden that focus in others, and it's who knows. The bottom line there, if I may go off script for a moment, if we are indeed a place of growth in the area of startups and entrepreneurial pursuits, there should be more than just Startup NV working in this space. I'm not saying that Zero Labs doesn't count, but come on. We cannot possibly count on this part of the system for accurate or even useful data if Startup NV has an agenda and is not updating these resources anyway. Unless we are putting money in, perhaps, then we may get updated data. I don't know. A little help here? No, not much. It's unfortunate. How about the GoEd? The GoEd. I have skipped over LVGEA. I'm not going to talk about that today. I talk about them too much. And I have to be honest, startups and entrepreneurial innovation ecosystems are not on their radar from what I can tell from their website and activities and so on. That's not off the radar. They still have some resources on their website, but it used to be a little bit more top of page. Now it's more bottom of page. It's not really on the radar screen. We have gone over the key industries that are published on that site, and by some appearances, these are where the state is looking in general, especially movement through the state to other places. So, for example, manufacturing and then shipping those things out, shipping through the state. And if you look back at the history of Nevada, it was on the path to California. So there were some routes passing through the state, and that's one way to engage some of those travelers and maybe introduce them to silver mining and some entertainment. Of course, healthcare is one of our growth industries here in Nevada, and certainly in Southern Nevada, and so on. So you can check out the key industries on the LVGEA website. I'm sure it's linked directly. It's easy to find, and we've talked about it before. Surely, innovation and entrepreneurial pursuits within these key industries would be interesting, maybe, And with Nevada proactively involved in the Right to Start and America the Entrepreneurial efforts now, well, we'll see. And I have talked about both of those things recently on this very program. The Nevada GOED, and again, that's the Governor's Office of Economic Development, so it's a statewide economic development entity, is driving that stuff. We talked about the Right to Start legislation here in the state from 2023 in a previous episode, where we also talked about Nevada, talked about Nevada being one of the founding states of the America the Entrepreneurial effort, which is a 501c3 national organization and so on. So Nevada the Entrepreneurial for a win. So we've talked about those things. We had links and so on in a recent episode. We'll revisit all of those things again, I'm sure, many times. Maybe they publish some useful data elsewhere in the GOED website ecosystem. Who can say? I say ecosystem. I'm really not using that correctly. The universe of GOED websites and resources and so on. Here again, we need to make it easier to find data and not go spelunking as though we are wandering through silver mines in search of, silver, I would hope. Now it's lithium. Lithium is the new silver, perhaps. They do publish some data, or they seem to, and I have linked 2 starting points. The GOED is something of a sprawling beast, as I've suggested, so some of the resources may be elsewhere, not so easily navigable from their homepage. But this episode is not a deep dive into the data resources, since this is what the Genius Roundtable is for. That's what we'll look into, and making it easier to find this stuff is it's a good idea in general. I have to tell you, when you're spelunking through Nevada, anywhere in the state, and resources to try to find this stuff, good luck. So let's take a quick look at 2 of the resources which I've linked from the GOED homepage. I've provided links, and they are linked directly from the GOED homepage, from the data and research menu at the top of their website page. Now, the GOED site is accessible. Allegedly, it has accessibility features, and your navigation path may be different. You may be able to find that with screen reader or other ways of reaching the navigation. Hopefully, they've marked it up appropriately. But the links to the 2 sections on the site provided in the links section of this episode are direct to the content we're discussing here. But if you do want to wander around the site, it is accessible, I hope, and I hope you're able to locate whatever else you might find with some ease. We'll probably dive into this more in future episodes as well. So the 2 links, the economic snapshot page looks interesting. It shows data from January 2026, and then wait a minute, but it shows data also from December 2025, November 2025, October, September, August. Why did the publication of snapshot data fall off a cliff after January data was published? Should we be concerned about this? January 2026 is a few months ago now. They were publishing monthly. Okay, let's slide over to the entrepreneurship dashboard. And again, that's the other link for the GOED website that's in the link section of this episode today. And see what we have here. Okay, so more bar and line charts. That's nice. Those look nice if you can see them. And wait a minute. Why is this data for 2024 and some of it from 2021, or some of it's even older than that? And I'm not saying it started in 2017 and whatnot. I mean, the end ranges are 2020, 2021, maybe 2023. There's only one chart on the page that covers Q1, the first quarter of 2025. And there's a whole bunch of stuff that's older than that. So everything else that's older, I've not checked to see if any of these reports are actually accessible in any way, by the way. But one would wonder, where is the current data? Do they still have any? Are they still collecting it? So do they have any? We're on May 1st. Let's see some Q2 data for 2026, and let's see some of that other data get updated beyond 2020, 2023, etc. Maybe there's some data to be found deeper into the recesses of the GOED website or one of its tribute sites, like I said. So that is something I will leave you to explore for now. We will dive into that more into the future as we start doing some data capture work, especially over at the Innovate for Vegas Foundation. Think asset maps and rolling introspection and data collection so that we better understand all this stuff. So, okay. So what about on the academic side? And we are coming to the end of the episode. This is the final section. So hang on. My voice is probably going to make it. Hopefully you will too. So I'm not feeling so optimistic at this point after my quick perusal of some of the sort of the well-known data outlets. But there is still our own UNLV down here in Greater Vegas Actually, they're not in Las Vegas. They're in Clark County. And they have the CBER, the Center for Business and Economic Research, which conducts surveys and gathers various indicators and publishes this data on their website, which we have linked to. So let's go check it out. The landing page we have linked to shows some announcement links and some quarterly business confidence survey reports. Those appear to be reasonably current. But the main block of links right in the middle of that page appears to point to some data from 2024. Okay, scroll down a bit below the quarterly business confidence survey links. You will find Nevada and Southern Nevada Nevada data index links. So these are economic data indexes, and they appear to end in October 2025. The economic dashboard page. So that first page was, let me make sure I'm describing this correctly. Yeah, the research and reports link was that first one. So not, except for the quarterly business confidence survey data, not really totally current. Even the events links are, let me take a second look at that. The events of the job fair draws thousands. Okay, a job fair from March 19th, 2026. So that's reasonably current. That's really just a news feed. So you have news about the local economy, I suppose, and those are current for March of 2026. We're in May. Hopefully April was uneventful. Literally. The economic dashboard page, that's the other CBER link, is basically a Power BI deck. I'm not a fan of Power BI. It's a Microsoft product. That's not why I'm a fan of it. I'm just not a fan of it. Power BI was heavily used during the pandemic era to report on some health department data and so on back then. The data is current through March 1st, 2026 across a variety of axes. Okay, so it's got like national, state, and county for Clark and Washoe counties, all of which are almost certainly pulled in automated fashion for publication. So getting these indicators, that's something you can automate. So automation is good. But what you get in a few data is a few data grids with all the numbers and a few charts, and that's about it. So there's not really any analysis here. It's just, it's a dashboard. Here's the state of affairs that we've pulled from other sources. Okay. We covered a local study which was not part of the CBER. It was part of I think it's the Lacey Institute. So we covered that study a while back, and we compared that report to the other report that EDAWN had sponsored as examples of these are just warm introductions that pull from these similar data sources, and they paint a nice rosy picture. They really, if you read through them, they're driven by some motivated reasoning. Basically, what we end up seeing is no data or optimistic data. Nothing else. And are we seeing useful data? That's the question. If you are an entrepreneur, an innovator, or an entrepreneurial innovator, I think I'm in the third category, or maybe all of them. Are you finding what you need to make decisions, or are you relying on a few individuals and entities that everybody points to as your authorities on these things? Oh, you want to start a company? You should definitely go to this event and you should talk to this person. Is this a smart city? Do we have innovation at our fingertips to publish data that we can actually analyze instead of hanging out with people? Is there any data? No, just go talk to those people over there and grab some lunch while you're at it. I can see government agencies falling behind on data reporting and analysis. Budgets are what they are, and the focus is shifting to those key industries, as I mentioned. So maybe they're not focusing so much on the entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem and measuring it and publishing about it. Either county, our locality, our county, maybe even across the state. It's disheartening to see data just stop. I don't know if there was an explanation published somewhere. Who knows? When the academic side is also falling behind, this may be cause for some concern. Where are the priorities? What are they? Is data capture and analysis a part of a coherent plan to develop a path through the right to start and Nevada the entrepreneurial notions? Are we just going to go in blind? Like, it seems good. I don't know. Is a cohesive messaging plan, including useful reports about these various pieces of data and information, in the cards? Are we going to get that someday? We should wonder proactively while we are seated at the Genius Roundtable, physically or virtually. It will be both. So I want you to think about that. If you've taken the time to listen to this episode, I thank you for that. But I want you to think really seriously If you are in an entrepreneurial endeavor, if you're thinking about pursuing one, if you're aspirational, if you're nascent, if you're working on something that's about to go, think about what sort of data you need, what you'd like to know more about, what you'd like to or need to better understand, and consider where that data could be found and why it may not be found there. I myself am a little bit concerned. Why are we not seeing some of this stuff published front and center? I've talked about this several times over the years that I've been doing this program. Back in the day, the real Silicon Valley, where I spent almost 15 years, the real Silicon Valley made it a point to publish announcements in the actual newspaper on the front page, or to make things generally visible and to announce and to highlight and to celebrate, or at least recognize various efforts and progress and so on, because it was a big thing. So by not hearing about these sorts of things in our, the economic data that points to entrepreneurialism, some more celebration of, I asked Zero Labs, what is it, was it a year ago or a year and a half ago? I said, hey, you're only your like fourth cohort. Do you ever talk about or announce or point to the actual success stories? Like, hey, we went through Zero Labs and now we are kicking off our startup and here's our launch day. Oh yeah, that's something we're working on. Still can't find it. The Startup NV effort, they kind of merged with Startup.Vegas. There's some other stuff that I have some questions about, but if we are a growing entrepreneurial economy, then we should have more resources and more recognition and more activity and so on. We should be talking more about failures. We should be talking more about problems to overcome, solutions, and what works and what doesn't. These are all things that would be indicators of a thriving ecosystem, not one that is driven mostly by people in positions of authority and that drive towards low-hanging fruit, perhaps, existing industry, convincing people to move in with tax incentives and so on, unless you're doing film production. No. But everybody else, if it's really just driven by tax incentives and these sorts of programs to drive existing industries towards Nevada, great. But we should be aware of that so you know what you're getting yourself into if you do try to start a business of some sort here. So that's where we'll leave it for now. There's a huge stack of things to talk about in this general area. If you yourself are planning on being an entrepreneur or trying to be or thinking about it, if you have some innovation that might fit, and there are places and facets of Nevada, especially Southern Nevada, that are absolutely interesting if you're doing something innovative, surely. Anything with water conservation, anything with energy conservation, anything that might look into indoor agriculture, which is a big deal here already, agriculture in general, manufacturing with sensitivity to or sustainability and sensitivity regarding use of water in particular. And that's just scratching the surface. Anything with healthcare, any healthcare devices, any sort of innovation in technology, innovation in particular in these areas, scratching the surface once again. So there's a ton of opportunity here. Do you have to move to Vegas to do these things? Not necessarily. Are we going to run out of water if everybody does? That's a question. Clark County is at 2.4 million people. There may be 3 million people by, I think it's 2040. 3 million people, that's a lot of water. There's no extra water coming down the pipe, as far as we know. In fact, just monitoring, speaking of data, just monitoring the level of Lake Mead can be a challenge unless it's already too late. I always tell people, why do we report on the temperature, the weather conditions, sunny, rainy, windy, whatever? So you got the temperature, the projected or forecast high and low temperature. Maybe it's so for a couple of days, 5 days, 10-day forecast. How much water is in Lake Mead right now? I don't know how hot it is today. Okay, maybe it's 82 degrees at this moment, but shouldn't we be much more aware of how much water we have? Boggles the mind. That should be right at the top of every website that shows a temperature and a sun or a cloud or whatever. Should also show like a glass of water that's at 38% full. It's either 38 or 32. I can't remember. Good luck finding that information until we're down to like, oh, that third pipe is sticking out of the top of the water. How are we going to get water now? So data. If we are a smart city, which some claim we are, I think a smarter smart city would be smarter about making these data available. First of all, capturable analyzable and publishable so that they are visible. And doesn't have to be with your eyes, but there should be visibility, observability. There should be transparency in how some of this stuff is available, captured, analyzed, reported on, so that people know what they're getting into and they're not listening to hype. I read about it on LinkedIn is not a good sign. So I'm going to leave it there. Thank you for listening as always on this lovely springtime Friday afternoon. Did you know it's First Friday? Of course you did, because it is the first Friday. It's usually on Friday every month. That's a whole nother topic we can talk about sometime, about how do people figure out what's going on in this place. It is a crazy thing. Community calendar, yet another topic we'll talk about another time. So thanks for listening. Thanks for all that you're doing, especially if you're entrepreneurial. Good luck, and consider that Genius Roundtable. Just saying. Take care.